the Senate Finance Committee will come to order. A quorum is present, and Senator Port has asked that we have Senator Bolden present the bill for us today, House File 3425, Supportive Housing Providers Grants Appropriation Bill. And this bill passed the House on Thursday last week, so we're going to be taking up the House file and apparently working off the language as passed in the House. Senate files in the packets. There are only a few words difference. If anyone wants to see what the differences are, I'm sure staff could fill us in on that as well. So we'll be taking up House File 3425. Senator Bolden, welcome to the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And good morning, members. You have before you House File 3425, a bill that, as mentioned, passed off the floor of the other body with bipartisan support and now replaces our Senate File 3595, which was heard by the Housing Committee earlier this session. This timely bill brings financial assistance to supportive housing providers that they will be able to keep their doors open and thus Minnesotans housed despite federal funding cuts. Supportive housing providers across our state deliver critical services that help to keep our neighbors who are most at risk of homelessness in stable, secure housing. This proven work reduces and prevents homelessness in every county across our state. The federal Continuum of Care program that funds Minnesota's providers is facing cuts, which is why we need to move this bill today. Neutral to the bottom line, this bill expands and uses an existing $9 million fund at MHFA, originally intended to strengthen supportive housing. At a time when providers are financially destabilized, what we can best do is strengthen supportive housing to allow pre-vetted providers to receive grants that temporarily backfill these federal cuts as work continues on long-term funding solutions. Our ability to respond decisively will have real impacts in the lives of everyday Minnesotans. I'll just share. One provider from Virginia, Minnesota writes, if these funds disappear, people who are housed will become homeless. In greater Minnesota, homelessness often looks like families doubling up, staying with others, creating unintended consequences, putting those households at risk too. With already limited resources in rural areas, this compounds housing instability and perpetuates cycles of homelessness. So members, we have an opportunity to prevent homelessness and the destabilization of families across our communities and across our state with this bill today. It's a temporary fix, but I hope you will join me and 103 of our colleagues in the other body to support it, and we'll stand for questions.
Thank you, Senator Bolden. Are there questions from the committee? And Mr. Olofsson or Ms. Painter, anything you want to go through? There's no fiscal note because we're just moving the money around. Questions, Senator Howe.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And you know, the question I have is, I have a couple of them, tell you the truth, but how are they, you know, I see in the bill that they assess on the emphasis of need, and so how do they, what is the criteria and what need, those in need, because I know that those folks that are struggling with dependency and that type of thing, and those that are disabled are struggling the most. So how do they prioritize when they say need? How is that differentiated between one and another?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I may phone a friend. I think we have someone who can speak to sort of the provider side of things and what that might look like in the audience.
Welcome to the committee. Please identify yourself and go ahead.
Senator members, my name is Christine Davis. I'm the Executive Director at Hearth Connection. Hearth Connection works with supportive housing providers around the state, and so we have familiarity with these funds in many parts of the state. The eligibility, I just want to clarify the question if you're asking about the eligibility for recipients of the program.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yes, that's what I'm looking for, is those participants, how do they rank that need and who gets priority over getting resources as opposed to who's lower on the list.
Ms. Davis.
Chair, Senator Howe, the priority is set by the federal government and has been prioritizing people with verified disabilities and chronic homelessness. So people need to establish those verifications as they submit to a coordinated entry assessment process, which is locally managed in each region of the state.
Thank you. Follow up, Mr. Chair. Thank you. And I guess that's where my concern is those that are chronic homelessness, are they on an equal basis to those that are disabled? Or are we look at the disabled first and then to the chronic homeless?
Ms. Davis.
Chair Marty and Senator Howe, the eligibility is based on which program the person is applying for. So if they are eligible for a permanent supportive housing program, they must satisfy both of the criteria, the disabling condition, the disability, and the chronic homelessness. There are other programs that allow people with significant risk of homelessness, some of the transitional housing, and some other programs. But again, the prioritization is always to serve people with the highest assessed need, and so they have assessments in every region where they must demonstrate the vulnerability of their need.
Senator Draheim.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for filling in today, Senator. I guess my question has to do we have a breakdown of how many metro versus outstate. Do we track that by just units or projects, or do we track that by beds? Because my understanding is there's 93 chair of both metro and outstate, but how do we look at that as far as the size? How many people are we taking care of in each category?
Ms. Davis.
Chair, Senator Draheim, the quantification is done in both ways. So we do have information about how many beds by project, by region, and as well as the number of projects and awards by region.
Follow-up, Chair?
Go ahead, keep going.
Thank you. So could you give us a breakdown then between the metro area versus outstate? And to me, I always look at it as beds. I don't know what the right nomenclature is, but that's how I perceive it, or bedrooms. So if we would get that data, that'd be great.
Ms. Davis, go ahead.
Chair Marty, Senator Draheim, we do have that information. I don't have it at the table with me, but we can get that for you, that breakdown. It is my understanding the projects are the equal amount split between the metro and greater Minnesota.
Chair?
Go ahead, continue.
Thank you. I understand the projects are the same, but that doesn't mean you could have a fourplex and a 100-unit apartment, which I think most would assume that the metro would have because of the population, need more beds. Do we have a cost breakdown, how we allocate funds based on, I know need, but is that based off of beds or some other data? Can you just walk us through when we look at the different organizations that participate? How are we deciding what is the appropriate funding for each one?
Ms. Davis.
Chair and Senator, the established method that the continuum of care has put in place is that the projects are locally ranked and prioritized and then submitted to HUD, and they have actually approved that level of ranking and assessment of need of which projects are awarded. So the establishment of what the agency might do in determining need could follow that established ranking that the local communities and HUD have approved.
And Senator Draheim, I see that you're looking at the same thing I am, the awards from 2024, which is broken down apparently by zip code. Or, I'm not sure how it's broken down, but yes, go ahead, Senator Draheim, continue.
Thank you, Chair. And I believe the first section on the sheet that we're looking at, the fiscal year 2024, they have the Minneapolis, Hennepin County, and then the next one's the St. Paul, Ramsey County. And then we have the Southeast for Rochester, and then the Dakota, Anoka, Washington, Scott, Carver counties, and then the Northeast, and then the St. Cloud area, and I believe the Northwest, and then the Moorhead is broke up out of that, and then Duluth. So I was just curious on how the funding was divided up. And then the last one is the Southwest, Minnesota. Because if you look at the funding, you know, areas where I would think would be a little higher is a little less. So I was just curious on how they determined what that funding was. But I think we have that answer.
And yes, as you said, and I think MHFA too should, I think if they get it to us, we'll make sure the whole committee gets it. But Ms. Davis, if you can comment any more, I mean, I think just to add to his question, you said something that HUD has to prove something. Just curious, who makes the final determination as well?
Chair Marty, Senator Draheim, each of the regions that you pointed out in the spreadsheet are continuum of care regions, so there are 10 in Minnesota. Each one has an allocation from the federal government that they have sort of a pot of money and an allocation that they can use to rank which projects and how they're going to spend, and they make recommendations based on their local assessments, and then they submit that to the federal government, who then says yes. And so actually it's based on a formula from the federal level about how much each region is given and awarded.
If I could, I have another question, if that's
Okay,
okay, Chair. Or we can go elsewhere.
No,
too.
continue. I don't, you're the, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. We have a little sheet here talking about interest. And kind of what I was trying to get at is what the formula was to kind of point out that, you know, we have just the supportive housing appropriation, the interest earned on those programs is 1.1, almost $1.2 million. And when I'm looking at these different regions, the 10 different regions, that's almost as much as some of those smaller regions get for funding. And, you know, this is more agency, I hate to say it, but it's kind of a dig that everybody I talk to wants more money for supportive housing. And here we have an agency who's unique and they have special abilities, I'll call it, that other agencies don't have, earning money on appropriations that we all voted on, either up or down. We still should want to see those monies used in the way that we determined, almost enough to cover one of those regions across the state. So I'm just kind of disappointed, Chair, you know, at that. You know, I know it's tough work. I know it's tough to figure out where the needs are, because throughout the state, everything's a little different. I understand that. But I just wanted to make the committee aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Bolden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Draheim. I will just say to that point, that is a conversation that we should have and that the Housing Committee is ready to have, just for members' awareness on this committee. There is a bipartisan bill that we will hear in the next, soon in the Housing Committee around that, and I don't want that to get to mean a delay for this. For, you know, there's 3,600 Minnesotans that currently depend on this funding for stable housing, you know, majority of whom are seniors, folks with disabilities, and so want to be sure that we are focusing, to move this forward for those important reasons, and important also to have that conversation in the Housing Committee, as we will do.
And you are, the Housing Committee, which you and Senator Draheim and Senator Portenson are on, you're planning to have that conversation soon?
In the next week or two.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Senator Draheim.
Just real quick on that, I have an amendment that would, I have a bill, and I just offered the amendment yesterday, that Senator Port asked me to withdraw to have more conversation with the agency, so that we can try to avoid this in the future. And, on one hand, this is what I said in committee, I appreciate the agency's use of the funds to make interest, because that interest they use to operate. But when it's an appropriation, so they have their mortgage side where they do a lot of loans and they get some interest off of that and they make money off of that to operate, which is fantastic. I appreciate that. But when we decide there's an urgent need, I think that funds should go for that need. And during the same period, we heard from the agency that there was a liquidity problem, and that's why they couldn't get some of the money out the door. And I think we had a conversation here, Chair, about that. So I'm a short timer. I'm half out the door. But for you guys that are gonna be here next year, I think this is something that we have to keep an eye on, to make sure that the funds are being used for the intended purpose. So, thank you.
And Senator Draheim, on that point, yes, I think there's strong bipartisan interest in that issue, and I'm glad you raised it, and I don't see you as halfway out the door. Senator Johnson, then Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is more of a procedural question. What is the intended path of the bill here going forward?
I believe that House File, we are taking up the House File 3425, and it would be going straight from here to the floor.
Okay.
It's coming through here because it's obviously dealing with budgetary issues, but it's not new money, it's just shifting around what it's used for, so that's why it's here.
Sure. Then I do have a follow-up question on
Sure, go ahead,
the program
continue.
itself. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I don't know exactly who this is directed to, but any of the testifiers, if you're willing to take. We've seen over the last several years some issues within our programming run by state agencies, and in the program integrity aspect on that. I know this is going to be $10 million that's going to be fed out to these agencies. Just wanted to know what our safeguards are going to be to make sure that these dollars are not going to be the source of any issues, whether fraudulent or misappropriated going forward.
Senator Bolden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Johnson, for the question. I will just say that these dollars, again, intended going through this program are going to no new providers. It will be the same vetted providers who have been receiving these funds, have been using this program. Nothing new happening here. It will be going through these vetted providers.
Senator Johnson,
Chair,
continue.
if I may follow up. Thank you, Senator Bolden. And what is our safeguards on it? Do we have inspections, follow-up throughout the program's lifetime as those dollars are flowing out? What is our safeguards on that?
Senator Bolden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate that question. I may phone a friend for that as well. We'll take it to staff. Thank you.
Madam Chair and members, if you look on paragraph C on page 2, there's an obligation to report to the commissioner detailing the use of the grant money and the number of people served. And then the commissioner will compile that into a final report to the legislature. I don't know if the agencies here, there might be further agency procedures that are not outlined in this bill.
Mr. Chair, I'll also note, so there are reporting requirements every 90 days until the funding expires.
Yeah, and it says each grantee has to do the reporting to the commission. Okay. Further, go ahead, Senator Johnson. Continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I don't want to belabor that, but we've seen in that reporting over the past, especially in some recent COVID-era programs, where the self-reporting on a number of those issues ended up being a pretty significant problem on that. What does the agency do to follow up and confirm or audit these reports?
Maybe somebody from the agency. Welcome to the committee. Please identify yourself and then go ahead.
Chair Marty, my name is Ryan Baumtrog. I'm the Assistant Commissioner for Policy at Minnesota Housing. Senator Johnson, thanks for the question. So the bill as it is allows Minnesota Housing to work with where the federal government has existing grants or has been granting with communities and organizations all across the state. But in order to do that, Minnesota Housing will have several steps with each grantee to do a pre-award risk assessment. So they will have to provide us documentation about their financials, their standing with the secretary. They'll have to enter into a formal grant agreement with us, which will have a budget and have details about how the funds will be used and details about how we will comply with all state laws in putting out the resources. So while we'll not be using an RFP to work and select the grantees, they will have to provide us all the things that we typically do to enter into a formal grant agreement with them.
And Mr. Chair, Mr. Barntron, thank you for that. But as the program continues, as the money is flowing out, is there any opportunity for your agency or the federal agencies to go in and audit that paperwork to confirm that that is true and to be able to follow up? Is there plans, is there a practice within the program doing that right now?
Chair Marty, Senator Johnson, so when grantees will seek reimbursement from us for spending, they will be submitting things that we will have to go through the disbursement process to check in. So they'll be along the way in terms of their spending. They will have to submit things to us that we will review and look at throughout the whole process. And then there is a grant closeout period that will exist where we will do a further reconciliation of the full award as well. So steps along the way, and then also in the closeout of the grant, there will be more financial reconciliation at that time as well, and an evaluation.
Senator Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And let me just, before I get to my questions, I just want to kind of highlight or amplify what Senator Johnson said. You know, reporting is not a fraud control. You know, I've seen reports come from agencies time after time, and quite honestly, they're so general that they're really just data, they're not information. And I hope that your preventative measures are sufficient enough, but we've not seen that in some of the other agencies. And it takes us, you know, years to uncover the fact that these fraudsters have been coming in and stealing from us. And then we saw even in one of the agencies where they were falsifying documents to cover that up. So I'm not accusing your agency of that, but I am saying we as a legislature need to be more skeptical of what the administration is doing, and we need to know that you don't only have those preventative steps in place, but you're actually following them and looking to do that. As someone who ran a fraud team for many, many years, I can tell you it's hard to find fraud and prove fraud after it's occurred. It's much easier to prevent it because probably 75% of the fraud that's out there you can't prove. It's under the radar. You suspect it, you think it might be happening, and I've got examples of that where we put in fraud prevention strategies that hit other parts of the company, and we were able to save way more than we ever expected. So, but I would like to explore the funding here, Mr. Chair. So this is coming from a $25 million one-time funding in the for supportive housing. I'd like to know how much is left in that fund.
Mr. Olofson?
Mr. Chair, Senator Pratt, for the record, Eric Olofson, Senate Fiscal Analyst for the Housing Committee. Senator Pratt, could you please repeat the question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, Mr. Olofson, how much is left out of that $25 million appropriation for supportive housing that we're transferring from?
Oh, Mr. Chair, Senator Pratt, thank you for the question. So of the original 25 million appropriation, it was reduced by 15 million in the 2024 session through legislative action down to a $10 million appropriation. Currently, there is 9.206 million remaining of the appropriation within the account, according to the state accounting system.
Senator Pratt, continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just want to make sure I understood that. So we had a $25 million appropriation. We reduced it to 10 million, and 9.2 million is still sitting there, as Senator Draheim said, earning interest and not being used for its intended purpose.
Mr. Chair, Senator Pratt, that is correct. And the 9.206 million does not include the interest earnings.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And can somebody explain to me, not being on housing, if I understand supportive housing, that comes in with some of the wraparound mental health services, addiction services, which I've heard we have a tremendous need for. Why are we still sitting on that money?
Senator Bolden.
Mr. Chair, I might ask the agency to come back and speak a little bit to that too, but I will just speak to the need. So you are correct that, supportive housing, it does come with those wraparound services, and there is a great need for it across the state, and which is why we are here to ensure that, again, budget neutral, moving those funds around so MHFA can get these funds out to the vetted providers in the face of federal cuts.
And perhaps we could have, if you want, Assistant Commissioner Baumtrog come back, but it's also, I think this was a new program in 2023, and therefore I assume some of it's just a setup time, but I don't know. You want Commissioner Baumtrog back?
Sure. I mean, Mr. Chair, we allocated these funds for a specific purpose. We've spent less than 10% of them, and after 3 years, it just seems to me that either the program was flawed when we put it in there, or and Senator Bolden, I agree with you. There's no when you're transferring funds, there's no net fiscal impact. But the fact of the matter is, there's going to be an opportunity cost of what we initially intended these funds to be used for.
Commissioner, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, Chair Marty, Senator Pratt, thanks for the question. So we got the 25 million in 2023, which was then changed by the legislature in 2024, where $15 million that was targeted for permanent supportive housing moved over to another new program at the agency. And that's where the agency has been spending its time in the recapitalization of distressed properties building, targeting permanent supportive housing. So we are in the selection process for 15 million of the original 25, and those selections should occur in the next few months. So that has been the predominant focus of the agency with the resources that the legislature passed in a new program in 2023. At the same time, the agency has been putting together a program from scratch for permanent supportive housing as the statute is currently written for the new program that targets permanent supportive housing. But as Senator Bolden walked through, the federal government has kind of changed the rules of the game, and so the agency has been working with stakeholders and partners to kind of pivot the focus of the agency's work to help with the projects that we're discussing here today. And so this bill would move resources from a planned RFP that we're moving forward with at the agency and should be available in the next few months, and this would redirect those resources to the change because of the federal government's actions.
Thank you, I appreciate that. It seems to me, Mr. Chair, what we've heard is that this wasn't a priority for the agency, that they've decided to move their attentions to other places. I'm not entirely convinced that if we give them the money for this, they'll have the capacity or desire to follow through with the legislature's directive. But it also raises the question of what's the long-term plan? We put $25 million into it now. Certainly for capital projects that might make some sense, but for ongoing, it seems like we're using $9 million here to do a long-term ongoing need with one-time money. And we probably had some one-time money going into a long-term need on the other side that the agency was either unable or unwilling to execute. But I guess my question is, if we put $9 million in this, will it fix the problem?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the question. So a couple of things. We would love to put ongoing funds into this program. There will be ongoing needs. And there's a crisis happening right now. In the face of the federal government cutting these funds, it was projected that it would, double homelessness across the state. And so there's a real and significant crisis to be addressed right now. And this is work we will continue to be looking at, and we'll need to continue that. I will also just highlight, and we'll certainly go back to the agency, but we'll highlight, in 2023, we allocated $1 billion to that agency for a number of programs, and 90% of those funds are committed. And so that, has been working successfully for family homelessness prevention and first-time home buyers. And so there are, much of those funds have gone out and are working well across the state.
Senator Pratt, continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Bolden. I mean, we've been blaming the federal government since we began this process, right? I mean, even when we were looking at a budget deficit in December of 2024, we were blaming the federal government and the current administration before they ever took office. So it seems like a handy excuse, and at some point in time we have to take control of our own finances. I mean, we had a very good change in the outlook for the upcoming biennium, but part of the reason that we were in this problem was we spent one-time money to satisfy ongoing needs, and then as Senator Draheim pointed out, the agency hasn't used the funds as we directed them to. And they've just been earning interest that they have complete control over, and it's $9.2 million without the interest included. There must be some sort of opportunity cost that we saw. Why it was so important for us to allocate those funds to supportive housing to begin with, as you said, it's still a major problem, but we've done nothing with it. That's not the federal government's problem. That's our problem. That's our agency's problem. That's the administration's problem. And I just find it interesting that it's probably fairly non-controversial to move these funds from one use to another, but I have to look at the process, Mr. Chair, and wonder how we got to this point and why we're still sitting on $9 million that we can allocate from 3 years ago, and why we allow this agency to continue to profit, basically arbitrage on public funds the way they have. And I've got real concerns with the commissioner's leadership on that, and with the agency's execution and on how they've treated the funds and basically the policy that we are responsible for in the legislatures. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I have Senator Draheim, Senator Mohammed, and Senator Friends on the speaking list. Senator Draheim.
Thank you, Chair. I'll make it quick. Assistant Commissioner, do you guys go out and inspect any of these sites? Is there spot checks? How does that work? If you could just give us a quick update on that.
Chair Marty, Senator Draheim, thanks for the question. One of the main uses of the federal continuum of care grants is for permanent supportive housing, as we discussed. And one of the things that the agency prioritizes with state resources, including housing infrastructure bonds, is permanent supportive housing. So in a number of cases, the agency has financed loans to build properties or preserve existing properties for permanent supportive housing. So we have an ongoing relationship with those properties via loans, where we annually get information, and we're part of the build construction process and things like that. So particularly for permanent supportive housing, the agency has strong relationships. I think the bill, as it currently does, expands what the agency would do and look at, and so that's also something we will need to figure out. But particularly for permanent supportive housing, we have strong relationships and legal contracts with many of the buildings in which the federal resources flow into.
Senator Draheim.
Thank you. Going a little different direction here, and I can't have a housing bill without asking nonpartisan staff a question. Right, exactly. So we talked about the differences in the two bills, but I don't really see much different. Can you just give us a quick rundown of what the differences is between the House file and the Senate file?
Ms. Painter.
Mr. Chair and Senator Draheim, yeah, they're very minor differences. I don't know if you want me to detail them, but it's differences like the difference between funds and funding, reports and a report, money and funds are the
So nothing.
nothing to be concerned about.
Okay, thank you. And then just one note for the committee, I believe I had an amendment to change the reporting time in committee from the 90 days to 30 days, but it doesn't matter. I'm content with the way it is, and you know, I get frustrated that we use one-time funding for needs that are ongoing, and you know, it's hard for the nonprofits that are doing the work to not know what's going on. So I don't like this trend. We've been using a lot of one-time funds for long-term issues. So once again, from a short timer, that's something I think we all need to work on moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Senator Mohammed.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Senator Liz Bolden, for bringing this bill, and Senator Port for the work she's done on it. You know, I think I'm probably the only member that sits in both Human Services and our Housing Committee, and what I have come to learn in the last few years is half of our permanent housing, supportive housing is funded through continuum care. And the folks who take advantage of these programs are seniors, folks with disabilities, it's youth, it's people who are on the margins of our systems. And I know these are good dollars to make sure that those folks have a stable place to call home. It is the best sort of use of our money to make sure we're not just, you know, continuing to do something that doesn't work. We know that this works, and I just appreciate you for bringing this forward.
Senator Friends.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Senator Bolden, for bringing the bill forward. Senator Pratt, you ask a good question, which is when are we going to call out things that we see from the federal government? I see the federal government making choices that affect the Finance Committee here in the Senate in some material ways. I see cutting funding for counties, I see SNAP benefits, and I see some questions about housing. As a member of the relatively small Greater Minnesota Democrat Senator delegation, Senator Draheim, Senator Pratt, I'm often asked, when are you going to speak out against your own party? Which I try to do where appropriate. I think for my friends in the GOP on the Finance Committee, I would ask, can't we ask the same of all of you? Here's the federal government, the Washington, D.C. We are a net exporter of Minnesota taxpayer dollars to Washington, D.C. We send more money to D.C. than we get. And here comes H.R. 1, and it really takes a chunk out of our state finance picture. So these questions in housing, these questions in other areas, it really hurts. And I'm inviting my friends in the GOP to just consider once in a while saying, that was made by a member of my own party. I don't like it and it hurts. We'll deal with it and we'll have more success in a bipartisan fashion. But if those of us in Greater Minnesota have to mention that we're not fully in love with every choice every Democrat in the state makes, I invite you, and I have had constituents in my district say, the question is not why are we asking about the federal government, but why aren't Republicans on the State Finance Committee? So my just 2 cents. Senator Bolden, you have my support, obviously. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Urging a little more freedom to comment. And by the way, it's kind of liberating. Once in a while, people say, hey, he's willing to ask questions of his own party. It's a lot of fun. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Senator Pratt.
Thank you. Senator Mohammed, want to move House File 3425?
Mr. Chair. Me.
I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry. Could I just make a
Committee.
couple of closing
Senator Bolden,
comments?
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes,
I will be
Senator
brief. I know you all are busy.
No.
Thank you. I thank you for hearing this bill. I appreciate the discussion. I want to just add a couple of pieces. One, that this is, in partnership with the federal program. These, to the questions about sort of accountability and oversight, these providers are not just accountable to us and our laws, they also are accountable to the feds, who do site visits every year. The feds do that, and I will note that HUD has some of the most stringent oversight of any agency at the federal level. The other piece I would just say is that, this is not about blame. It is just about the reality that half of the beds in this program, rely on federal funding that is now gone. And so this is us taking responsibility for this. As, Minnesotans, we care about our neighbors. We want people to be safe and secure and have housing. This is us making that investment in the face of money just being arbitrarily removed by the federal government, for us to say that we are not okay with that. And again, 3,600 Minnesotans currently depend on this program. We do not want them to become homeless because of the whims of the federal government. And so thank you for hearing this bill.
And Senator Boyd, I was planning to let you have comments after the motion, but yes, no, I'm glad you did make your comments now. Senator Mohammed moves House File 3425 was not amended here. House File 3425 be recommended to pass. On that motion, is there further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. And the bill is on its way. Thank you, Senator Bolden and
Thank you.
Ms. Painter and everyone. There being no further discussion today, I think we're not meeting till next week. We will let people know as soon as we have an agenda for next week. With that, this meeting is adjourned.